Maharaja's background is in BBT, especially as a chief manager, and his difficult years sharing Krishna consciousness in the former communist Eastern Bloc countries gave him experience in spiritual leadership that led to his future in the GBC. A member of ISKCON's governing body since 2001, he has occupied the responsible post of GBC Vice Chairman and later Chairman. His current regional responsibilities include Australia and New Zealand, as well as South Africa, Brazil, and Gita Nagari Farm Project in Pennsylvania. Beyond those areas of spiritual leadership, he travels far and wide, especially in North America, Europe, and India. Maharaja also established by that he has written Searching for Vedic India and Perfect Scape. His Holiness home base of operation is Australia and New Zealand. So that's our Devamrita Maharaj. So Maharaj, thank you so much for joining us. Are you ready, Maharaj?
Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Let me just adjust my setup here. I've been asked to speak about Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I thought to do it in a way that would focus on one particular chapter. And in that way, I hope that you would be able to dive deeper into this most wonderful text. I expect that every serious practitioner has in their home, at their residence, a set of Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as a set of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. I know that Bhadra Purnima has just passed, and many have acquired and distributed the full set of Srimad Bhagavatam. But let us not forget that Chaitanya Charitamrita is also an essential requirement. And as I've explained so many times before, Chaitanya Charitamrita, you could say, is actually Srimad Bhagavatam because there are so many Bhagavatam verses in it. And Chaitanya Charitamrita goes deep into presenting the most confidential tattva or truth about Lord Krishna and his associates, especially his dearmost associate. And by focusing upon Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, we realize, as the text itself says, that it's impossible to understand Krishna and Radha Krishna without the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Our heartfelt prayer and cry is the mantra Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahayanya. Lord Chaitanya is Radha and Krishna combined. Just by understanding that theoretically, you can begin your reading of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and gradually, as you engage in devotional service and associate with sincere devotees, the realizations of that cry, that prayer, will become revealed to you. So we have this week, some days ago, 6 days ago, the celebration of the passing of Srila Haridasa Thakura. Let's approach that through Chaitanya Charitamrita and glean from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's presentation insight into the affection the Supreme Personality of Godhead has for his devotees and how that affection manifests. We'll also witness the eternal emphasis of Mahaprabhu and his associates on chanting, dancing, and taking prasad, all in relation to the disappearance festival of Srila Haridasa Thakura. At the end of this chapter, Ancha 11, Kaviraj Goswami points out that the activities and characteristics of Lord Chaitanya are like an ocean of nectar, and just one drop of that ocean will satisfy your mind, your ears. We can meditate on Lord Chaitanya dancing with the body of Haridasa Thakura, personally putting sand on the body of Haridasa Thakura, installing him in samadhi, in other words, personally arranging for prasad to be distributed. Sometimes we think, does Krishna really care about me? The answer is that even for a neophyte devotee, the care of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is there. It's just that as a neophyte, someone doesn't fully have consciousness or awareness of how Krishna in the heart is guiding him or her. I often point out to you one statement by Srila Prabhupada in Srimad Bhagavatam, where he says, Krishna is not lazy in your heart. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya is discussing with Sanatana Goswami, Lord Chaitanya tells Sanatana about the activities of Krishna in the heart. He said those activities are very grave, not easy to understand. But those activities are definitely there. In the chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita about the passing of Haridasa Thakura, you'll see those devotee care activities in the foreground. Because yayata mam prapajante thumbs the daiva bhajamyaham. As you surrender to Krishna, he reciprocates with you. And Haridasa Thakura is the perfection of a surrendered devotee. And so therefore you see in such a dramatic way, such a monumental way, you see Lord Chaitanya's devotee care program in action. And by hearing of it, we'll be inspired also to treasure devotees, relish devotees. Sometimes it's a fact, sometimes we have disagreements with devotees, but we should always look and see what's underneath. We should strive to see the devotees' dedication to Srila Prabhupada's mission. We're all individuals, and naturally there'll be differences. But if we train our vision to take as most important the dedication to Srila Prabhupada's mission, we'll be able to proceed with determination in our caring for devotees. Maharaj Goswami will always begin by offering prayers to Lord Chaitanya and his associates. And he wants you to know that Haridas Nath, Lord Chaitanya, is the master of Haridasa Thakura, yet he danced with his body, with the body of Haridasa Thakura on his lap. So every chapter in Chaitanya Charitamrita begins with some kind of keynote verse. And it's always very intriguing to focus on those keynote verses in the beginning of a chapter and also what comes at the end. And then what's in the middle between the beginning and the end is infinitely relishable. Everything, beginning, end, middle, every part of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is meant for your unlimited and eternal delight. Tuesday, we have coming up the arrival of Srila Prabhupada in the USA on board the Jaladuta. And you may recall that Srila Prabhupada wrote in his diary as the boat crossed the Atlantic, a trip in which he had 2 heart attacks and thought if he had a third one, he would not make it to the USA. Yet the crossing of the Atlantic was abnormally smooth. And Srila Prabhupada wrote in his diary that reading Chaitanya Charitamrita was his solace. He was relishing the nectar, he said, of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that gave him solace. Also, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, during his what you might call moments of relaxation. The difference between how a Paramahansa, spiritual world personality, such as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, and his relaxation. There's a difference between that and any material relaxation. So he would read Chaitanya Charitamrita. I always thought about that, you know. Sometimes you feel stressed. Sometimes you feel burdened by anxieties, no matter what ashram you're in. Would you think that, oh, I need to relax? Let me just open Chaitanya Charitamrita. Would you think that? Or would you think, oh, I need to get on Facebook? I need to watch a movie, Netflix or something. But the acharyas are showing us how to truly relax by immersing your consciousness in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Namami Haridasam tam Chaitanyam tam chatat prabhum samstitam apiyan murtim swanke kritva nanartaya. Our insight given by Kaviraj Goswami as we go into this chapter. And of course, the obeisances to the Panchatattva, the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Kaviraj Goswami begs those associates of Mahaprabhu, kindly bestow devotional service upon me. This is very important for us to keep in mind. We're beggars begging for service. How is the best way we can serve Krishna at every moment? This is always on our mind. And in seeking the blessing of devotional service, Kaviraj Goswami glorifies Sadgosai, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And he says an amazing thing about himself. He says, I'm writing this Chaitanya Charitamrita, but I don't know how to write properly. Yet, by writing this description, I'm purifying myself. So this may surprise you. The author of a text that even today in Bengal is considered to be the most exquisite Bengali literature, even from just the material literary point of view, never mind the content. Yet, here such an erudite, top drawer writer is saying, I don't know how to write properly. Such humility is beyond our comprehension. Before talking about Haridasa Thakura, Kaviraj Goswami wants to give us some background about Jagannath Puri and Mahaprabhu's activities there. During the daytime, Mahaprabhu would engage in chanting and dancing. He would do this especially in the Jagannath temple. At night, he would engage in confidential discussions of Radha Krishna Leela with Ramananda Roy and Sup Damodar. And at night, his feelings of separation would escalate dramatically. In the context of those days and nights in Jagannath Puri, we have Lord Chaitanya's servant, Govinda, bringing Mahaprasad to Haridasa Thakura. Because remember, Haridasa Thakura never went inside. He never went near, in fact, the Jagannath temple. He was following the social custom of that time, which still lingers today, that those not born in Hindu families cannot enter the temple. So Sanatana Goswami didn't go, because even though he's born in a materially erudite Brahmana family, he associated very closely with Mohammedans, and therefore he was considered an outcast. And as you know, Haridasa Thakura was born in a Mohammedan family. And so neither Sanatana Goswami nor Haridasa Thakura would go near the Jagannatha Puri temple, what to speak of go inside. But Lord Jagannath would come to those two as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So now we have Mahaprabhu's servant Govinda bringing Mahaprasad from the temple to Haridasa Thakura. But what does he see when he arrives? He sees Haridasa Thakura on his back, chanting his japa very slowly. So Govinda encourages him, please get up. Here's Mahaprasad. But Haridasa Thakura says something very surprising. No, today I'll fast. I haven't finished my chanting. At the same time, I'm in a dilemma. I'm between a rock and a hard place. I haven't finished my rounds, and I don't eat before I finish my rounds. But then you brought Mahaprasad, and the injunction is when someone brings Mahaprasad, you can't neglect it. You offer prayers to the Mahaprasad and immediately honor it. Now, of course, we might think that means at least 15 pizzas. Immediately honor it. It's an offense to neglect it. Now, taking Mahaprasad, honoring Mahaprasad is all about the quality of how you deal with the Maha. It's not so much about the quantity. So Haridasa Thakura did honor the Maha. A little portion, Chaitanya Charitamrita says. So you might think, oh, why just a little portion? Come on, Haridas, go for it. It's Maha. But as we explain, it's not the quantity, it's the quality of your consciousness in honoring the Mahaprasad. As Prabhupada explains in the purport, prasad means favor. It's the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, upon you. So Mahaprabhu heard about this incident of Haridasa Thakura on his back, chanting his rounds very slowly. So Mahaprabhu, the foremost devotee care personality, went to see what's going on. And he asked Haridasa Thakura, are you well? And what was Haridasa Thakura's response? My body is well, but my mind and intelligence have problems. So why would he say his body is well as contrasted to his mind and intelligence? Mahaprabhu wanted more of an explanation. So he said, can you tell me what your disease is? You say your body is well, but your mind and intelligence are not well. You might wonder, what kind of disease is this? And Haridasa Thakura says something that all sadhakas, all practitioners of sadhana bhakti should remember. What is my disease? My disease is that I cannot complete my rounds. Therefore, I consider myself to be in a disease condition. We should always remember this point. Don't think that you cannot finish your japa, your prescribed number of rounds, and function normally. As soon as you start making that mistake, you should know that you're in the grip of the illusory energy. Haridasa Thakura, the Nam Acharya, is by using himself as an example to point out that if we don't finish our vow of chanting every day, how can we consider that we are normal, that we're functioning normally? We should understand we're in a diseased state of mind. Our consciousness is polluted because we have no protection against Kali Yuga except for the Maha Mantra. So you should try to help devotees who are having problems finishing their japa. And you have to gently point out to them the reality that you're not functioning normally. Your consciousness is not the same. You see, one of the tricks of illusory energy is to get you to think that, well, even though I'm not chanting all my rounds, I'm still a nice person. I'm functioning. As far as I can tell, I'm functioning as always. You know me. I'm a bit smart. Yeah, that's me. And I've got so much world experience and business expertise. And yeah, my family affairs seem to be in order for the moment anyway. And my kids are listening to me. Well, this week they're listening to me. And at my workplace, things are all in order. Oh, yeah, I haven't finished all my 16 rounds for, well, some months, maybe it was some years, but I still believe in Krishna. I believe in Prabhupada. I've got this picture of Guru Maharaj on my wall. This is not the conclusion of Haridasa Thakura. I can't finish my rounds. Therefore, I am in a diseased state of consciousness. Lord Chaitanya knows Haridasa Thakura. He says, number one, you're old. You can reduce the number of rounds you chant because, in other words, more than you're being physically old, you're spiritually old. You're a liberated soul already. So you don't need to follow strictly sadhana principles. You've done your mission. In your present incarnation as Haridasa Thakura, you are meant to establish and preach the glories of the holy name. You've done all that. So please, you can reduce your chanting. This is an instruction about spontaneous love. This is about bhakti beyond the platform of rules and regulations for performing devotional service. Haridasa Thakura, you might say, doesn't follow through with Mahaprabhu's depiction of him. Mahaprabhu's telling him, you're an eternally liberated soul. You're the Namacharya. You're the prime propagator of the holy name. You've fulfilled your mission. Haridasa Thakura says, you want to know, in other words, you want to know the truth about me? I'm low born. My body is abominable. I engage in low activities. I'm the most condemned of persons. I'm unseeable. I'm untouchable. But you accepted me as your servant and delivered me from a hellish condition. You raised me to the Vaikuntha platform. So you see the dynamics here. On the one hand, Mahaprabhu is saying, you are a liberated soul. You are the Namacharya. And Haridasa Thakura is saying, me? I am a wretch. I am condemned. I'm the lowest. Is he just speaking poetry? No. This is the experience of an actually advanced devotee. The Haridasa Thakur will submit a request to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which you might find a bit unusual. He, in speaking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, says, you're the independent Lord. You act according to your free will. You make the whole world dance, and you can certainly make me dance in many ways. And you've done that. Since you can make the whole world dance according to your desire, and you've made me dance according to your desire, I have one desire to present to you. And in other words, since you are the independent Supreme Personality Godhead, and you're always acting on your desires, let me have the opportunity to present a particular desire to you for your actioning. What is that? I detect that very soon you're going to close out your pastimes in this world. I don't want to see your departure. I don't want to be around in this world for when your pastimes become unmanifest. Before you become unmanifest, I want to give up my body in your presence. And Haridasa Thakura presented to Mahaprabhu this scenario that Haridas wanted for his departure. I want your lotus feet on my heart. I want to stare into your Mukha Chandra, your moon-like face. And I want to chant with my tongue, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And that way, I'll give up my body. If you do this, O most merciful Lord, this will be the perfection of all my desires. Now, Mahaprabhu replies in a very, I would say, relationship way. And his response shows us the intimate bond between the Lord and his devotee. He says, look, Haridas, Krishna is so merciful. He must execute whatever you want. You're such a devotee, such a dear devotee, that Krishna must execute what you want. The bond is so tight, is so intense. There's no doubt about it. Krishna will fulfill your desire. But what about me? Of course, that me is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, but he's Krishna in the role of his devotee. So he's saying, let's think about my side. Whatever happiness I have is only because of your association. How can you go away and leave me behind? So here, Haridas has just said, I don't want to be around when you go. I don't want to be around to see your departure. And Mahaprabhu is responding, I don't want you to go away, and I'll be left here bereft of your association. So this is the loving bond between the Lord and his devotee. How is Haridasa Thakura going to respond to that? He says, oh, please don't create an illusion. I'm so fallen, but I beg you, please grant me this mercy. There's so many devotees, millions of them. They're fit to sit on my head. I always wondered about the consciousness of such an exalted devotee revealed in such words, that there are so many respectable personalities, millions of them. They're all fit to sit on my head. Can you feel yourself saying that? There are countless devotees, and all of them, they should sit on my head. And then my head will have some function. This is the humility of a real devotee. Furthermore, Haridas says, if an insignificant insect like me disappears from this world, what's the loss? I see, he tells Gauri, I see you're affectionate to your devotees, but I'm just an imitation devotee. Still, I expect that you'll fulfill my desire. So on the one hand, Haridas is saying you are the independent personality of Godhead. On the other hand, he's saying, I expect that you'll fulfill my desire. Is he being selfish? No, this is the mystery of Bhaktavatsala, the Lord who is always affectionate in his dealings with his devotees. The harmony between Mahaprabhu and Haridasa Thakura is so tight that Haridasa Thakura can say something like that. I'm just an imitation devotee, but I do expect you'll fulfill this desire. In other words, I really mean what I'm asking for. So Lord Chaitanya goes away saying he'll come back the next day. So upon his return the next day, and he's obviously going to fulfill Haridasa Thakura's desire. He starts kirtan, chanting and dancing in the courtyard where Haridasa Thakura is laying. Chanting and dancing, by the way, did you hear that? Not sit down bhajan. Full on chanting and dancing, even with a chief dancer, Prakeshwara Pandit. Prakeshwara Pandit would beg Mahaprabhu, oh, I need thousands of Gandharvas to make music while I'm dancing. But he's the chief dancer, Prakeshwara Pandit. And all the devotees are surrounding Haridasa Thakura, who's laying on the ground, and they're chanting Nam Sankirtan. And Lord Chaitanya begins to speak the glories of Haridasa Thakura. And when Lord Chaitanya glorifies devotees, you'll find in several places in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is like he's talking with 5 mouths. Oh, if we could only have the ability to glorify devotees. just a small part of that way. And the more Mahaprabhu would glorify the qualities and activities of Haridasa Thakur, the happier, the more his happiness would increase. So even for the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the role of his devotee, he tastes unlimited happiness that's always increasing by glorifying a devotee such as Haridasa Thakur. So now please fix in your mind the departure scene. On Saturday, we had a very moving class by His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj about the departure scene of Srila Prabhupada. And at least for me, the description etched deeply in my consciousness. So here you have a chance to engrave upon your consciousness the departure scene of Haridasa Thakur. So Haridas arranged that Mahaprabhu sit right in front of him. And he took the feet of Mahaprabhu on his chest. Remember, he's laying on the ground. And he's holding on to the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, pressing them to his chest. And then also with his arms, he's with his hands, he's gathering the dust from all the devotees around, the dust from their feet. And with his eyes, he's staring into the face of Gaur Hari. And tears are pouring out of his eyes. And with his tongue, he's chanting Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. That's how he gave up his body. When all the devotees saw this amazing departure, they all chanted loudly the holy names of Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya himself became overwhelmed with ecstatic love. And he picked up the body of Haridasa Thakur and placed it on his own lap and began to then dance in the courtyard. And all the devotees, influenced by such ecstatic love, began to dance even more. The dancing was going on, and then Srup Damodar, the intimate associate of Mahaprabhu, informed him there are rituals that we need to do. We need to install Haridasa Thakur in Samadhi. So they put Haridasa Thakur's body on a palanquin and took it to the sea. And they were marching with kirtan as they carried the body of Haridasa Thakur. And Lord Chaitanya is leading the procession and dancing as the other devotees, including Venkateshwara Pandit, would chant and dance behind him. When they got to the sea, Mahaprabhu personally bathed the body of Haridasa Thakur in the ocean and then announced to the devotees, from this very day, this sea at Jagannatha Puri has become a great tirtha, pilgrimage site. Water was poured over Haridasa Thakur's feet, and the devotees drank that water and smeared chandan, sandalwood pulp, prasad, remnants from Lord Jagannatha on the body of Haridasa Thakur. And then they dug a hole in the sand and put Haridasa Thakur's body in it and included remnants from Lord Jagannatha. They're still doing kirtan, of course, And Lord Chaitanya, during the kirtan, is personally covering the body of Haridasa Thakura with sand. And then they made a platform above the burial site, samadhi site, and made some simple fencing all around. And the chanting and dancing is going on. And now it's time for prasad. On the departure of a Vaishnava, prasad plays an enormous role. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself went to the shopkeepers who would distribute the prasad from Lord Jagannatha. I mean, how many offerings a day does Lord Jagannatha get? 50 something or the other. So there are shops outside the temple that make the prasad available to the people in general. So Lord Chaitanya himself, the Supreme Personality Godhead, took his cloth, his top cloth, and spread it, begging, please, in honor of the passing of Haridasa Thakura, bring prasad. So he just, with his top cloth, he spread his cloth. But what happened? All the shopkeepers start rushing forward with huge baskets of prasad. So Srup Damodar is watching all this. He knows Mahaprabhu is in ecstasy. And so he starts to organize the situation. He tells the shopkeepers, wait, take your huge baskets of prasad back to your shop. We'll do this in an organized way. We need some management here. So Srup Damodar arranged for servants to get the prasad and carry it, get the big quantities of prasad in baskets and carry it on their head. So then at the prasad taking site, all the devotees, on the arrangement by the direction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the devotees would all sit in rows. Mahaprabhu had them do that. And Mahaprabhu personally began to distribute prasad, assisted. Now, when Lord Chaitanya distributes prasad, you definitely want to be there. He's Krishna. He can eat the whole universe. He can eat infinite universes. So when he distributes prasad, he puts on each plate, to start off with, enough to feed 5 persons. He always thinks big. Srila Prabhupada once said like that. He said, ever since I was a little child, my disease has always been I could never think small. I was always making big plans for Krishna. So when Mahaprabhu distributes prasad, it's always big. But the devotees wouldn't take. They wanted Mahaprabhu to sit down and begin honoring the prasad first. So they just kept their hands up in the air. They're seated with the prasad enough to feed 5 persons on each plate in front of each devotee, but their hands are in the air. They wanted Mahaprabhu to accept prasad. So Srup Damodar arranged that the Lord would sit down and others would distribute the prasad. And just see how eager Mahaprabhu is to serve the devotees. But finally they sat him down, and because otherwise the devotees wouldn't eat. They just hands up in the air, prasad on a plate in front of them, enough to feed 5 persons. But could you do that? Mm. So then once Mahaprabhu started taking prasad, all the other devotees began to eat. And they were filled up to their neck. I don't know if you've ever taken prasad in that way. I know you've taken prasad so that your belly pops out, but all the way up to the neck. But that's Mahaprabhu's style of taking prasad at such festive occasions. He kept telling the prasad distributors, give them more, give them more, give them more. This is our eternal bhakti program, chanting, dancing, and taking prasad. After all the devotees finished their prasad, Mahaprabhu offered each devotee a garland and sandalwood pulp personally. In this way, we learn how to cherish devotees. And as I said before, sometimes interactions with devotees are very challenging. And there are disagreements how to serve Krishna best. But we always should strive to see that devotee's service as the foremost meditation, not whatever disagreement we're having, which may be there, but it shouldn't be the foremost meditation. So now Mahaprabhu is going to give a benediction to you, me, and anyone who has seen this festival, this Mahotsava of the passing of Haridasa Thakura, or who hears about it. He says, anyone who has seen the festival of Sri Haridasa Thakura's passing away, anyone who's chanted, anyone who's danced here, anyone who's offered sand on the body of Haridas, anyone who's joined this festival to take prasad will achieve the favor of Krishna very soon. There is such extraordinary power in seeing Haridasa Thakura. One final point that I want to bring for your meditation in terms of our focusing on the bond between Krishna and his devotee. Because I know sometimes the thought comes to your mind, does Krishna really care about me? Does Krishna notice little old me? Has Krishna forsaken me, forgotten me? Is bhakti so sweet but so far beyond me? Listen to what Mahaprabhu says as we conclude this chapter. Being merciful upon me, Krishna gave me the association of Haridasa Thakura. Being independent, he has now broken that association. When Haridas wanted to leave this world, it was not within my power to detain him. Simply by his will, he could give up his life, exactly like Bhishma. Haridas was the crown jewel on the head of this world. Without him, this world is now bereft of its valuable jewel. And Mahaprabhu instructed everyone, cry out, Jai Haridas. So this is the Supreme Personality Godhead as a devotee saying, I had this devotee's association, but now that association is broken. I couldn't stop him from leaving this world. That was his desire. And he left this world just like Bhishma. So just think, Mahaprabhu is saying, Krishna mercifully gave me his association, and now that association is gone. Very heart-splitting expression. But every heart-splitting expression of a real devotee leads to chanting and dancing. So Mahaprabhu began to dance, and everyone danced with him, chanting, Jai Haridas, Jai Haridas. Finally, after the chanting and dancing, Mahaprabhu said goodbye to the devotees. They went to their respective abodes, their residences. And Mahaprabhu took rest, feeling a mixture of happiness and distress, as Kaviraj Goswami explained. But don't think that this is material happiness or distress. These are all the perfection of transcendental emotions, in which both the happiness and the distress are simply ananda, blissful, on the spiritual platform. So Kaviraj Goswami gives you a benediction. You might say, well, I wasn't there for the feasting, for the installation of Haridas in Samadhi, in the bathing of his body in the ocean, the chanting and dancing. I wasn't there. So how do I benefit? Kaviraj Goswami says, anyone who hears this victorious passing away of Haridasa Thakura will certainly fix his mind firmly in devotional service to Krishna. So this Leela is all inclusive. You're a part of it. And Kaviraj Goswami concludes by saying, this Leela shows you how affectionate Mahaprabhu is toward his devotees. Yes, he's the topmost of all sannyasis, yet he satisfies his devotees' desire with such great care. So just being able to delve into this pastime in your presence has inspired me very much. I like the point that Srila Prabhupada raises at the end of the chapter, because Kaviraj Goswami says that Haridasa Thakura was not simply the topmost devotee, but also a learned scholar. And so in the purport, Prabhupada explains that a learned scholar, the true definition of a learned scholar is one who knows how to get out of the material world and achieve the permanent position in the spiritual world. That's the true scholar. That's the truly learned person. Human beings are meant to show their expertise in that way, how to get out of illusion and become attached to Krishna. Then you are truly smart. Otherwise, what do you have that is real evidence of being intelligent? I was hearing today of, well, relatives, relis, as they say down here. And some of them are religious, some aren't. The ones who aren't religious They were talking about good times, family gatherings, getting together with friends. And the motivation, they said, is let's just all honor whatever time we have left in our life. Let's honor that. And that's it. What do you think? Could you be content with that? Let's just honor whatever remaining days we have by getting together and talking and reminiscing. And that's it. Let's just honor the remaining days, which will come to an end. So let's just honor whatever time is left. Can you be satisfied with that? So the passing of Haridasa Thakura shows us how a devotee goes from one service to another service. I like the way Srila Prabhupada describes how death for a devotee is like going to sleep in one place and waking up in Krishna's presence. So think about that when you take rest tonight. Materially speaking, taking rest at night is just like dying. You just drift off. You don't know. You're just so trusting when you go to sleep. You're trusting you're going to wake up. So death is similar. You go to sleep, but you wake up in a different body. For a devotee, death looks the same as what a non-devotee goes through. The devotee goes to sleep as death, but wakes up in Krishna's presence. Now you might say, suppose my mind at the time of death is so disturbed, I can't remember Krishna. What becomes of me? So I love the way Srila Prabhupada explained that. Generally, someone who's actually a devotee will think of Krishna at the time of death. If someone's actually a devotee. But just in case there's such physical disturbance, and it happens that the devotee, the aspiring devotee, can't focus on Krishna. Krishna forces himself into your mind, remembering all the service you did. That's a real relationship. That's the epitome of devotee care. You, due to physical derangement, can't think of me, but I'm thinking of you. I remember the service you did. I will force myself into your mind. So while Srila Prabhupada was explaining this, one devotee asked him, but doesn't Krishna say, whatever state of mind you have at the time of death, that's where that determines your next life? And Prabhupada answered, that's the general rule. But for a devotee, what does Krishna say? Or what does Krishna have Arjuna say? Kaunteya prachidani name bhakta pranashyati. My devotee will never be vanquished. That doesn't mean your material body will never be vanquished, but it means your spiritual life will never be vanquished. So he explained that the verses in Bhagavad Gita about leaving your body, whatever's on your mind, whatever your consciousness is, that determines your next body. That's the general, generic reality. But always remember, Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala. He's so affectionate toward his devotee. So even if the devotee some other is so overwhelmed by the death experience, which indeed is physiologically extraordinary, still Krishna remembers your service. He won't let go of you. All right. Maybe we have time for one or two questions.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. With your words, we felt that we were participating in the final rites of Haridasa Thakura. Thank you so much for that. To devotees, is there any question that you'd like to ask Maharaj? You're most welcome. Please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
My humble obeisances. I've got a question. When Haridasa Thakur left his body and he had tears in his eyes, were they tears of happiness or was it due to separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
But that's also a type of happiness. Don't think materially. Just like at the end of the chapter, when Lord Chaitanya took rest after all the events of the day, he took rest feeling mixed feelings of happiness and distress, but that's not material. So, however, Haridasa Thakura was crying as he stared into the moon-like face of Mahaprabhu, it's all on the pure spiritual platform, in which even pain and distress is blissful.
Okay.
That's the true definition of non-duality. Not that there's no variety, but that all the varieties are Satchidananda, eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, whether pain or pleasure. So the pain of the spiritual world is blissful, not like the pain of material existence.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
There's one more question, Maharaj, from Gaurav. Gaurav,
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, Dandvat Pranam, Maharaj. Maharaj, I just want to confirm something. Like, as you said, like when we go to the sleep, we should have to think like we are sleeping in this world and we are going to wake up in the other world. So what should be our prayers every night when we go to the bed, in case if we leave this body in this night? Please explain, Prabhu. Thank you.
We pray that whether we leave this body or not during the night, we engage in Krishna's service. If Krishna wants to take us somewhere else, we just want to be in his service. If he wants us to stay in this body for some more days, we want to be engaged in his service. So that's why for a bhakti yogi, living and dying is all the same. If you live in this body, you're serving Krishna. If you give up this body, it's to serve Krishna. The service to Krishna always goes on, whether you wake up in this body or somewhere else. All right. So I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you, Maharaj.
thank you so much, Maharaj, once again, and hope to see you soon next Sunday, as discussed. His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Nanraj Prabhu, do you wanna?
Finishing a prayer.
Yeah, okay.
Bhagavati Mataji is going to sing Nashing prayer today. Bhagavati Mataji?